Senator Mitch McConnell is a master strategist, but he's also a critical ally of President Trump and a formidable foil for Democrats in the House and the Senate. McConnell would probably embrace that. He also would likely concede that he might be facing the most important Senate race of his career.
Last weekend, I went to Kentucky. I wanted to get a little feel for how Kentuckians are thinking about Senator McConnell. National Democrats, of course, are salivating at the chance to defeat the powerful majority leader. But do local Democrats think they actually stand a chance? I also wanted to know a little bit of what they think makes McConnell tick.
From a very, very early age, Mitch has gotten up every day since I think he was 5 years old, and all he thinks about is what he can do that day to advance his political career.
According to a Real Clear Politics polling average, Senate Majority Leader and Kentuckian Mitch McConnell's approval rating is at 24.3% in Kentucky. In fact, he's one of America's most unpopular senators with voters in their own state. McConnell has been in the U.S. Senate since 1985. He was initially known as a Reagan-era moderate Republican. Fellow Kentuckian Congressman John Yarmuth has known the senator since 1968. Yarmuth believes the Senate Majority Leader is motivated by one thing: power.
One of the things that fascinates people, what do you think makes him tick? Because he's a very different, in certain ways, he's a different politician than he was in previous incarnations. What is your analysis of sort of what drives Mitch McConnell?
It's power, pure and simple, and it's unfortunate because it's power without a purpose. It's power for power's sake. He doesn't really have any core principles. You can find almost no legislation in his 35 years with his name on it. He really has not been engaged in policy. He really doesn't care much about it. But he does care about power. He cares about the court, and he cares about his court appointments. But it's mostly just about power, and it's not really ego with him. That's the thing. I don't think Mitch has a big ego.
McConnell does get heat from his constituents, many of whom say he's distanced himself from the lives and the realities of true Kentuckians. If that relationship is frayed, he's found a friend in President Trump, who's quite popular in the bluegrass state. Just this week at a Lexington rally, McConnell proclaimed that he and the president have, quote, changed the courts forever, saying his motto is to leave no court vacancy behind. He's been a loyal and fierce advocate of Trump and his agenda, but will that help him in the polls next year?
Next year, Senator McConnell will be on the ballot. Yeah. And on the one hand, as you said, this is at this point a strongly Republican state. On the other hand, much like Matt Bevin, he is one of the least popular senators among his own constituencies in the country. Right. Do you think that there's a shot that Mitch McConnell could be vulnerable?
There's a shot. I think it's going to be tough. One thing you have to recognize that one of the reasons that Mitch is so weak in polling is because there are a lot of Trump voters who don't think that he has helped Trump enough. So they're not necessarily
they're not liberal Democrats.
No, they're not liberal Democrats. I think Mitch is right around 35% approval rating right now, but there's probably 10 points out there that he would get in a general election anyway. And they're not going to turn away from Trump and then vote for the Democrat. But if Trump, for some reason, is not on the ballot, that makes the race much more winnable.
That close relationship in a red state might look to be decisive, but Kentucky has a history of being unpredictable. There are certain characteristics that could help the right Democrat beat McConnell.
One factor is whether or not Trump is on the ballot. The other factor is the Democratic candidate. Obviously, there's a primary going on. Chuck Schumer's recruit, Amy McGrath, who ran for Congress here and is a veteran, is one of the candidates who's running. I know you're not going to endorse or wade too deeply into that, but what do you think are the characteristics of the type of candidate who'd be strongest against Senator McConnell?
Well, I think actually someone who paints a contrast in both energy and warmth. And Mitch McConnell, for whatever you can say about him, nobody has accused him of being charismatic. and I think that you need somebody who has energy and charisma and also warmth, because he's a pretty cold character. So I think more so than policy and issues, I think that personality and again, energy, I think, is going to be important. Mitch is 77, I think, now, and moves pretty slowly, and I think that kind of lively. Somebody who can can not let him get away with his normal techniques in debate. You're not going to get too many chances to debate Mitch because he won't agree to many. But the one opportunity, or the two or three probably opportunities you have to really be on your toes to do it. Amy doesn't have a lot of experience in that field, but I'm not sure we have a candidate who does.
So where does that leave Kentuckians? They say they've been left behind.
Senator Mitch McConnell is on the ballot here next year. He's also not very popular in the state. What do you think? Do you think that there's a chance a Democrat could win?
I think so, because Mitch has kind of sold himself to Trump, and it's starting to hurt and it's starting to backfire. And if you know one thing about Mitch, he is a politician, and he's kind of starting to distance himself from Trump. But I think, you got a guy 76 years old. What does he have in common with the citizens of Kentucky? He hasn't lived in Kentucky forever. And when he left Kentucky, his salary was like $52,000 a year. Now he's a multimillionaire. How did he get that? He got it all selling out Kentucky. And it's the most powerful guy in the Senate. What has he really done for Kentucky?
McConnell does, however, have appeal in rural Kentucky.
He wins in the outer parts of the state because he fears it. He spreads fear and all that kind of stuff. They're going to take your guns. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And that's how he gets it. And I think people are starting to wise up that he doesn't have their best interests at heart. It's all about taking care of him and his cronies and making sure he makes more money.
Still, some people just can't bring themselves to vote for him. Certainly, the folks attending this Democratic rally at the local Teamsters Union Hall won't cast their vote in favor of McConnell.
Mitch McConnell will be on the ballot, next time around. Do you think that he's vulnerable? Do you think he could be defeated?
I think he's more vulnerable than he's ever been before. And I've seen people, I've had people calling from other states that have asked about this, just basically wanting to know what are people saying about Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. And I think people are fed up and they want change.
He's the most focused politician I've ever seen. He's I called him the Tiger Woods of politics once, because Tiger, again, since he was a child, he focused on nothing else. And that makes him very formidable.
So, Sagar, basically everybody I talk to in Kentucky, and this is my sense as well, having lived in the state, is that it will be very hard to defeat Mitch McConnell, that the candidate who the DNC recruited into the race, Amy McGrath, is definitely not going to be able to get it done, even though she's raised $10+ million, which is just like, why? But there are a couple other candidates who are talked about potentially getting in the race, and I think Bevin losing will certainly be encouragement to them. Two different models, both of them, people that I know and that I like and respect. One is Rocky Adkins. He's the current minority House leader. He's kind of a traditional labor Dem in the state, but he's culturally conservative. Right. So he's pro-life, he's pro-gun, he's from the eastern part of the state.
But the problem is there's no money for him.
That's the challenge, is can he attract the national money when he supports those conservative cultural issues? He could be a pretty formidable candidate against McConnell if he were to get through the primary. There's also Matt Jones, a friend of mine who's the host of this radio show, Kentucky Sports Radio. It's the most popular program in the state. He's like a grassroots celebrity there. He does have a few big donors in the state, at least, who have said if he gets in that they'll back him. He's also from the eastern part of the state, which is, just so you know, the best part of the state to be from if you're a Democrat trying to run. It's where there's a lot of mistrust of McConnell. It's ancestrally Democratic. It's where Andy Beshear was able to pick up enough votes to take out Matt Bevin. Interestingly, Mitch McConnell just filed this kind of BS FEC complaint against Matt Jones, which has forced him to go off the radio from his bread and butter activity. They're almost forcing his hand, like he has to get in the race now.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting watching this, because I think what it really does show is, as much as there is anti-establishment fervor, there is all of that, but he has built power base in the state, right?
Oh,
Which is, he can still win by +5, +6, even if he's not, if he's not popular, as long as the president is fully behind him. And he's not like Bevin. He still has fought for at least some of the things that the people who voted for Trump and is very popular in the state for, and that's ultimately enough that's going to allow him to keep up.
Well, here's the other key, and this is what John Yarmuth said in the package, which I think is really critical. Trump's going to be on the ballot.
Right.
If Trump had been on the ballot when Bevin was running, Bevin probably would have won too, as like egregious and much of a jerk and off-putting and all that he is. So McConnell, with Trump at the top of the ticket, Trump's going to win that state by 30 points.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really, really, really hard to overcome. But You get the right candidate in there, maybe you got a shot.
Maybe. I'm very doubtful. All right, next on Rising, Virginia's legislature is officially blue for the first time in decades.
One group that invested heavily in the Commonwealth's election was the Human Rights Campaign. Their president is going to share his reaction to the election results as Rising rolls on.